Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not, because they're not gonna get the. And I talked to Debbie about this. I said baseball. No, I talked to Debbie and I said softball Canada, who's the one who's wrote that, their lawyers, they're not going to have one amendment, one agreement for us, another agreement for Oakville, another agreement for everybody else. They got to have one agreement for everyone. Anyway, listen, I got to run here. I'm hosting a webinar on Zoom here for baseball. Actually, one of the coaches is the assistant softball coach for Fresno State, the hitting coach, Matt Lyle. He's going to be one of our 3 guests today for our Zoom seminar. So I got to run because I'm the host. Oh, yeah, not a problem. Okay, we'll talk later. Thanks. Bye. Hey, JG.
What's up, Dirk?
I'm good, buddy. How you doing? Have you guys started getting the storm yet?
Yeah, we got it. I think it's coming. It's gone through, but anyway. You guys, it's on its way?
Yeah, it's supposed to be about 10:30 here. It's getting dark. I actually just moved my car in because they're calling for some real high winds. Usually we leave one of the cars outside, but I brought everything and I went put all the stacked all the chairs in the backyard, things like that.
Roger that.
So on average, we're going to go with about 20 minutes for each of them.
20? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll, so, from whatever time you start, just try to keep track of that because, and give yourself a couple of, a minute or two, obviously, to ask them a question as a follow-up to something they may have presented. Here comes Matt. Hey, Matt. How are you? How you doing, Matt?
Hey guys, how are you?
I'm good. Hey, JG, is Nicole your wife?
Yeah.
Oh, she's listening in. She's going to be your toughest customer tonight.
Should be a critic.
That's right. Are you watching the draft? Are either of you guys watching the draft?
No, not yet.
No. Torkelson went first, no surprise from ASU. Then, shoot. I can't remember who went. Oh, the kid from Arkansas went second, outfielder. And then Meyer kind of jumped because the Jays, I think, had their eyes on Meyer, the pitcher out of Minnesota. He went third. Lacey went fourth, the lefty out of Texas. And the Jays took the shortstop out of Vandy, Austin Martin. And that kid was supposed to go probably top 2, top 3. So
they stole him?
I really think they just took the best athlete when he got down there. I think they wanted a pitcher. All the indications were they were going to take pitching. I think they felt Meyer was going to be there. And when he went early and Lacey went, I think they just took a kid who's got incredible versatility. And I saw he played 7 positions this past year.
Huh.
Just like even Torkelson, he's been a first baseman at Detroit, announced him as a third baseman when they drafted him. So, Matt, are you in California?
I am. I'm in Martinez, California. It's about 30 miles directly east from San Francisco.
So I got to say, and this is a compliment. And I read your bio that you're a granddad to 2 kids.
Yep. I got a 4-year-old and a almost 3-year-old grandkids.
Wow, congrats! I didn't think you had, because it's funny because it's because Monte has 4 girls. I think Brian's got 2 girls. So okay. There's no way all 3 guys going to have all girls. So when I went and looked you up, I'm going, okay, I can't use that line to introduce you guys. So
no, I got 3 boys and 2 girls.
Yeah. And one of my sons is named Chase as well. So now any of them play ball?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. My oldest is, I have 3 C's. I got Chappie, Crosby, and Chase. But Crosby, my 3-year-old, he's about everything right now. And my 16-year-old, he actually runs track, 200, 400. He likes to run. So I don't know how he's my kid.
We're just waiting for Monty and Bryan to let them in the room before I let anybody else. So Matt, you're going to go first. Matt, can you hear me?
For some reason I've got in about 60 seconds. There's just a weird delay. 60 seconds. For whatever reason, it's really slow for me for some reason. So strange.
Okay, where are these guys? Because I don't want, oh, there's Monty's in, so I can get him in. Now I just got to find Bryan here. I can send him in.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, Coach. Just waiting on Bryan. Let me see if I can call him to see where he is.
Hey, I just got off the phone with him. He's
Okay.
driving. He's actually going to Nick Gonzalez, who played for him at New Mexico State. He's going to like his draft party. I will, you want me to shoot him a text? I just got off the phone with him to tell him to jump on.
Yeah, shoot him a text. And I can always let him in the room whenever he shows up if he's late, but
I'm texting him as we speak, Dirk.
okay, yeah, that's fine. I just don't want to let anybody else in the room yet if I don't have to.
Sure. Yeah, I just shot him a text to because he sent me 2 documents that he wants to use for his presentation so that I could screen share them. So Bryan and I have done a couple of these together. So
Did he reply?
he has not yet.
Okay.
They've been delivered. So
He might be driving. So what I might do is just in the interest of time. Oh, yeah, there he is. He's here.
cool.
Okay. So I'm going to let everybody else in and we're going to get going as soon as Bryan comes in the room here. Oh, there he is. Hey, Coach. You got to turn your mic on. How much more driving do you have to do before you get to your draft party?
I'm going to have to sit right here, but that's okay. I've sent my good stuff to Monty, and Monty's got my graphics. So he's going to share with me. I was able to get this done.
Well, you've got, you're going to go third. So Matt's going to go first. Monty's going to go second. You're going to go third. So you got about 40 minutes if you want to keep driving and get somewhere else to stop.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I'll do that. If I don't need to be on right now, yeah, then I'll get the computer lapped up and do this thing right. Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
mean-
I've got about 20 more minutes.
Okay, so we'll get started. I'm going to let everybody in the room right now, and then we're going to get started. And if you jump on, I'll just keep watching for you when you enter the room again. If you
Okay.
have any issues, just text me, and I'll have to send you a link again. But I'm hoping that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that shouldn't be good. Big
Okay,
day.
super.
Yeah, Nick Gonzalez just went in the 7th. Unbelievable. So really sick.
So who went? So Seattle took who?
Seattle took the right-hander from Georgia.
Yeah,
Oh,
Hancock.
Hancock.
Yeah.
Yep, they took Hancock, and then Nick went to Pittsburgh. So D1
Wow.
baseball had it.
Well, Martin fell down to 5.
Yeah. Well, cool. So I've got some time. I'll check back, and it should be 20 minutes. It looks like should be 20 minutes.
Okay.
So I'll just pop back on, and I'll do it on my laptop and get some Wi-Fi at the house. And I apologize for this, but this draft thing, this is an opportunity I can't miss. Too good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I'll be right on then.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to get started here. Hey,
And
good
Dirk,
evening.
Do you want me on here for this or no?
You don't have to be your call. It's up to you.
Okay. I'll just
Okay.
jump off, and I'll be back in 20.
Super.
Thanks, brother.
Hey, good. Drive safe.
Thanks.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Baseball Ontario Around the Horn Zoom webinar tonight, Wednesday, June 10th, MLB Draft Day. And as you heard Coach Green say, some of you may have heard, one of his former players, Nick Gonzalez, just went 7th overall in the first round to the Pirates. My name is Dirk Drieberg, and on behalf of Baseball Ontario, it is my pleasure to welcome our guests tonight, 3 well-known, well-respected, and highly sought-after hitting coaches. Coaches Monte Lee from Clemson University, Coach Bryan Green from Washington State University, and Coach Matt Lyle from Fresno State softball. Tonight, it is my pleasure to welcome back to the host chair. Somebody did a great job a couple of weeks ago with Coach Matt Tallarico, J.G. LaRock, high school teacher and phys ed during the day, a member of the National Strength and Conditioning Association, part of the Baseball Ontario coach developer team, played his college ball at Cal State Chico for Lindsay Meggs, as well as at West Virginia State University. He coaches travel ball here in Ontario, and he has been a part of the Ontario youth team coaching staff, as well as a coach at T12. When not coaching, teaching, or spending time with his family, Coach LaRock can be found as an instructor with young players at the Baseball Academy. He has done a phenomenal job growing baseball in the northern part of Ontario. So welcome back, Coach LaRock, better known to all of us as JG. It is my pleasure now to introduce our 3 coaches and our 3 guests. Matt Lyle, in his first season as an assistant coach with Fresno State softball team. Prior to that was a hitting analytics instructor in the Chicago White Sox organization. While with the White Sox, he was responsible for all assessments and creating individual hitting plans based on the strengths and weaknesses of all players. He's also spent time at the University of Missouri with their baseball team and at South Carolina with their girls softball team. He has also been a head coach at Menlo College. Some refer to him as the internet's most favored baseball and softball coach. Our second guest tonight is Coach Monte Lee, currently head coach for the past 5 seasons at Clemson University with a winning percentage of .679. Prior to that, he spent 7 years as a head coach at the College of Charleston. In 12 years as a head coach, he has a .665 winning percentage. At Clemson, his players have not only excelled on the field, but in the classroom as well. Prior to being a head coach, he spent time as assistant at South Carolina and at Spartanburg Methodist College, one of the most sought after hitting instructors as well as baseball instructors on the circuit, Coach Monte Lee. And finally, some of you may have just heard who will be joining us in a few minutes. He's just on his way to a draft party for one of his former players who just went 7th overall, Coach Bryan Green, in his first season as a head coach at Washington State University. Oh, there we go. I thought I lost everybody. We've got a bad storm going through Ontario right now, so we're a little bit worried about the internet right now. Coach Green spent 5 years at his alma mater as head coach of New Mexico State. He's appeared in 9 NCAA regionals as a coach at the D1 level. He's also spent 6 years at University of Kentucky as an assistant and 4 years at UCLA as an assistant. He's also coached at Hawaii, Oregon State, and San Diego, recognized for his expertise as an infield and hitting coach. This is our hitting hot stove. Again, a reminder, if you want to see the speaker or anything that's being shown, please switch to speaker view in the top right-hand corner of your screen. So without further ado, JG, take it away, bud.
Thanks, Dirk. Thanks for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. Matt, can you hear me? Dirk, can you still see Matt hanging around?
No, Matt got bounced out. He's coming right back in right now.
Okay. So we'll just wait for Matt. So just everyone has a little bit of the lay of the land for tonight. Matt's going to talk to us about basically the blueprint, kind of what the roadmap will look like in regards to setting up a hitting program from nothing to something, a little bit of a technology that we can have. We don't necessarily have to technology, how we can expand on different parts of hitting. Coach Lee is going to talk to us about timing, how it's a big piece of the puzzle. He's got a lot to talk about in a great presentation that talks about timing. And then Coach Green is going to talk to us about two-strike hitting and the approach. We had a good conversation yesterday. He's played on a couple of different teams. Washington State actually this year was third in the country, third in their conference, hit by pitches, their approach of two strikes, those types of things. So it'll be, we have a great lineup and a variety of different ways in regards to hitting. Matt, you good to go?
Yeah, but I apologize. Everyone have been having a little bit of technical issues. Hopefully, can you hear me all right now?
Yeah, it's coming in.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm ready to go, and like I said, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I'm ready to go, and I appreciate everybody tuning in tonight.
So Matt, we just I don't know if you're in and out by that. We're just kind of give a brief introduction. So you're going to kind of give us a roadmap, basically, of what to look for. We're going to talk a little bit of technology. If we have some, what do we do with it? What's it look like? And if we don't have any technology, because we're dealing from like grassroots to college and pro programs, kind of what we can do at the same time. And we're going to try and boost up your 900,000 followers on Twitter. We're going to try and bring that up a little bit more today.
I appreciate that. Yeah, today I wanted to share with you guys, I did this presentation, which is usually over an hour long. I'm going to give you the 15-minute version. This is specifically kind of for high school baseball coaches in that age group. So I wanted to share what I call the hitting development roadmap. It's really designed for high school, college coaches that they want to have a hitting development roadmap or a blueprint for practices and for individual players. So let me get into my sharing my screen here, and I will get it started. And bear with me a little bit, patience, for some reason, for the first time in the last 3 months, we're having my first ever Zoom issues with just the internet being a little unstable for some reason. It's 94 degrees right now at my house, and so maybe it's the heat that's doing it. So let's see here.
No stress, man. It's all good.
We're getting there.
I think it was about 100
Hopefully
today
you
in
guys can
Ontario.
see my- Oh wow.
No, I'm just
So
kidding.
hopefully you guys can see my screen right now. It's got hopefully a hitting development roadmap. Are we back in business?
Nothing yet.
Okay. It says I'm sharing the screen. This is very odd today. I don't know why it's doing this.
There you go. We're good to go, buddy.
Okay. So this is what I call the hitting development roadmap, and I'll go through it the best I can in this time that we have today. And so let's get started and do it. So the first thing that we talk about when we're developing, our hitters in our program is we want to be able to, assess and evaluate the hitter. So the first thing we've got to do is, hopefully everyone has a hitting philosophy, whether that's hitting ground balls to the opposite field or hitting dingers and all about the launch angle life. Everyone has at least their hitting philosophy, hopefully. I'm going to talk about, to me, that's the corner of it. Like, what is your philosophy and what do you want to get accomplished? And then the first thing that I do with any of our hitters is I interview them. I want to sit down with them at least for a little bit to find out what is it that they want to get accomplished. And so for me, the first thing I do is, what do you want out of the season? What are your goals? What's the best way for me to provide feedback and criticism? Because I've got some hitters that love brutal honesty. I've got some MLB guys that I work with that they love brutal honesty. And then some guys, they're sensitive and you need to sugarcoat it a little bit. So, figure out for you what's the best way. So I talk to my players and then help them establish, tangible goals, not just awards, whether it's exit velocity or on-base percentage. It can't be like, I want to be an All-American or just I want to do this. It's got to be somewhat tangible. So interviewing them is one of the ways that we do that. And we try to find out, what is it that gets them going. Okay. And then the next thing that we do, and I know it's difficult for everybody else, and I know JG, you did this, we want to do some type of a physical screen, okay? We've got to know, like, what are they capable of? I am on-base U and TPI certified. I know JG, you got recently, but you can create your own screen. And this is a picture of the hitting screen for on-base U. And if you're not good at these type of things, I can tell you, especially at the college level, one of the biggest things, most important things for us is having a really good partnership with our strength and conditioning department. So if you're a high school coach, hopefully you've got a strength and conditioning coach or someone in there that you can build a relationship with, that you can work on this with. At Fresno State, our strength and conditioning coach did the on-base U screening with me with all the players. So we got 2 eyes on it, someone who's really good at it. So I always do a physical screen first, find out, what are they capable of? One of the biggest mistakes you make as a coach is asking players to do a movement or do a drill. We get upset with them that they can't do it. And we've come to find out because of an injury or something to do with their body, they're unable to do it. And so starting with the hitting screen is really important way to kind of measure that and figure out, what is it, what's going on there. And then you got to figure out, what do you have? Everybody's budget is different. I've coached in the SEC, I've coached in the Pac-12, I've coached in Major League Baseball. Budgets are all over the place. But I also coached high school baseball for 12 years, and our budget was basically nothing. It basically came out of my own pocket a lot of times. So figure out, what is your budget. And then I would tell you the best kept secret in player development at the high school and especially the college level is getting free work from kids that go to your school. Whether it's a flyer, a Facebook post, get the word out to have your players get the word out. See if you can find somebody at your school that loves the game of baseball but doesn't want to play it. They want to help out in some way. You can give them some gear, t-shirt, hat, and you can have them help you collect the data and help you do some of this stuff. If you're not good at the administrative thing, I guarantee you there's some students at your school that love the baseball game, would love to help the team out. And so I would reach out to them. I reached out to all of our math professors at Fresno State and asked them if they had anybody that wanted to do any data work for us. I got a ton of response. And then you got to figure out, for a hitting assessment, you got to figure out how many swings do you want to do. For us, when I'm developing a player, I try to get at least 100 swings before I develop their plan. So the first week of practice, if I'm a high school coach in California, the first week back to practice is the first week of February, and everyone's getting going with their season. What I'm going to do in that first week is evaluate all my hitters. I'm going to get the machine going, whatever, I'm going to get BP going, whatever I'm going to use to evaluate our hitters, and I'm going to get them 100 swings, 200 swings, use it over 2 or 3 days, and I'm going to, create this assessment, if you will. And like I said, it's depending on your time, your budget, how many assistant coaches you have. If you want to do it off the tee or front toss, the machine, live, I would tell you that if you're going to evaluate players and you're going to build plans on them, stay away from tee and front toss as much as you can. Machine and live, real, the closest to game like you can do is the best thing you can do for evaluating and assessing players. So I call this a make it work budget. This is kind of the high school coach's budget. When I was with the White Sox and different teams, we've spent $50,000, $75,000 on some of this stuff. But this is the lowest make it work budget that I can come up with. So we want to get batted ball data. Okay, we want to get some batted ball data off of our hitters. We want to get exit velocity. That's the biggest thing that we want to get. So the best way we can do that is the pocket radar. I have a couple pocket radars. I think they're about $300. They've got some really good video features in them too. So if I was to buy one thing as a hitting coach, it would be a pocket radar, and that's what I would use in the cages to get exit velocity. After that, I would get a bat sensor. Blast Motion, I think, is the best one. I think they're running deals right now for $75 US dollar, or $75. They usually $150. So at the college level, every one of our players has them, but you can get by with just one and sharing it. And that gives you bat speed, attack angle, it gives us all these data points that allows us to get a better picture of our hitters from an assessment standpoint. And then again, I prefer a pitching machine for evaluation because it's the most consistent, and it's going to be at least if you have a good machine, it's going to be the most consistent. But front toss and live arms, if you got one, it doesn't cost you anything, right? Those are all free based on, except for the labor of it. So, and then from a video standpoint, if you want to videotape your hitters using your phone or iPad, most of us already own one of those, or an Android phone. So, for the most part, you shouldn't have any added cost there unless you wanted to invest in an iPad. And then again, I use a spreadsheet to do this, and I'll show you some other programs that you can use. But for the most part, we all have computers, we all have spreadsheets, so it shouldn't cost you very much to build out your hitting development, workshop or lab, if you will. So those are the things that I would buy if I was a high school coach. As you get up and if you have a bigger budget, these are some of the other hitting screens that we do. So we do a vision assessment. We use UHIT. There's a program called Game Sense. Win Reality is a big one. If you guys want to Google it, Win Reality is a really good one. Synaptic. And so we always assess our players from a vision standpoint, plate discipline standpoint. Plate discipline is something that in season I spend the most time working on our hitters on. So it's really important. It's not just swing mechanics. Swing mechanics is a very small part of it. And then if you want to do more assessments, again, if you're the coach, you can do a weight room assessment. Figure out, what lifts are important to you, whether it's a squat or deadlift, and you can assess your players and start realizing, hey, we need to start building some strength in the weight room. So the next thing that I would do is, so I've got to, you had this assessment. Like I said, the first week of practice, you've got some help, hopefully. You've assessed all your hitters. You've got 100 swings. You've got some blast data. You got some exit velocity data. You've got whatever's important to you, you've got. And like I said, it's in a spreadsheet maybe. You can organize it in a spreadsheet. That's one way that I would do it. Driveline has a program called Track that makes it way easier, but it is expensive. Tableau is another one if you're looking for. And then here is just an Excel spreadsheet. This is my Excel spreadsheet that I used for the Chicago White Sox. We use this in the entire organization. I developed this for some of the areas that were important to us. Exit velocity, bat data, KBS data. And if you look, you can see, we put the MLB average, the MLB elite hitters numbers, and then we track people by month. So this was their 2018 stats, then their spring training stats, their April, May, June, July. We could see we wanted them to trend from red to green. And if they did a good job with that, that was great. So we wanted to see those numbers turn from red to green. And so this is how I did this. Now, like I said, this is pretty extensive in this Excel spreadsheet, but you could see, you could pick 2 or 3 things that you care about, whether it's exit velocity, bat speed, it could be a couple things that you think are really important, and you can track them this way. So I just used an Excel spreadsheet, and this is how we did it. And it was, besides the labor and time, it didn't cost us anything from a software standpoint. Okay. And we had different ways, and I won't get into all the ways that we track that, but that's just one way that you can do it. And then so I've collected all this data from our hitters. Okay, we've got all this data, we've tracked it all, and so for me, as a coach, I want to communicate all that data to our hitters in the most easy, digestible way. So for me, this is just an example. When I was at Missouri and when I was at Fresno State, these are our hitting plans for our hitters. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see this is a guy named Tony. He had his swing plan and his goals on the left. And the bottom left corner was his assessment. And you can see there's only a few metrics. Average exit velocity, max exit velocity, just a few things. Then next to that in the middle column or the right column, you can see this was his daily plan. I wanted him to do the stride drill with the rack. I wanted him to do the controlled fall drill, the seesaw drill. And I had these different drills for him and different goals. And at the very bottom, you can see it says areas of improvement, hierarchy of needs. Now, Tony could have 10 things that he needs to work on, but these were the 3 things that I wanted him to really focus on in the fall: cleaning up his load, having a better base when he got to launch position, and then he had a big arm bar. He didn't do a very good job of side bending and hip hinging. So that was his plan. Over on the right, you can see a similar one for Haley Fuller in the fall. And you could make this very simple. It doesn't have to be this extensive. It could be like, hey, I looked at all the data, and here's 3 or 4 drills for you to work on. And again, like for a lot of your players, younger players, they don't need to know more than that. But having these individual plans and putting the time into doing that, your players are just going to get so much better than everybody doing the same drill, everybody doing the same thing every day. You're going to be able to target individual needs, and it's going to just help from a hitting development standpoint. It's going to help your program out a lot more than just team drills and team everything. You can see these 2 hitters have very different drills in their daily maintenance. Okay. And then my best advice for you guys as coaches, especially if you have younger coaches, and I can tell you at the college level, we do this a lot, is to gamify everything you do. Okay. If you haven't realized yet, all your kids are spending hours and hours on Fortnite every night and day and morning for that matter. And so if you can gamify any of your data, we do a lot of games where you've got to hit this many distance in the hit tracks machine that we have. The first one to get to 1,000 feet, first one to get to 10,000 feet, and how many swings it takes you to do that. We do a lot of 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 competitions. And then, I post leaderboards every Monday. Every Monday, there's leaderboards of everything from quality of bats to exit velocity to plate discipline. We have a huge leaderboard and I can tell you right now, from a buy-in standpoint, a fun standpoint, the more you can gamify and make competitions, create leaderboards and track it, the more buy-in and interest you're going to get from your players. And, a great example is that in softball this year, we had the 80-mile-an-hour clubs. If you hit 80 miles an hour, you got your name on the wall and you got an 80-mile-an-hour club. When I was at Missouri for baseball, we had the 105 club. If you got 105 miles an hour with a wood bat off of a machine throwing harder than 80, you got a T-shirt and your name on the wall for the 105 club. And I'm telling you, kids were excited to do this. I had pitcher onlys who have been drafted in the Major League Draft in the last 2 years who would say, "Coach, give me a shot at the 105 club." And they would go in there and do it. And we would always laugh. And the game we would play is if the pitcher onlys ever got in the 105 club, we would let them hit BP sometimes. We had a couple guys get 102, 103, and I was pretty worried that was going to actually happen. And then I guess I'll show you guys just so you guys can see what I do. We track and retest our hitters all the time. You can see with Tony here, we want to see progress, and the players want to see progress. So if you look on the top left, we tracked average exit velocity and max exit velocity every week. He saw big gains in some of those numbers and distance, and so the point of all this, besides player hitting development, is that your players get some buy-in. They believe in you. It's kind of a BS meter. For me, data and technology is the ultimate BS meter, because if you're teaching something that's not right and not helping them, the numbers are going down, there's something wrong there. So the data really helps to create buy-in, and like I said, it's a great BS meter for our hitters to be able to see. So this is just a really good example right here that you can see with bat speed and attack angle. These are things that Tony was working on, and he improved really well in those areas. And then here's my advice of the day. I'll kind of end with this right here. Don't get overwhelmed by the data, okay? Don't get overwhelmed by all the things I talked about today. Figure out what metrics are most important to you. Okay, what things do you care about? What's important? If it's plane, connection, and rotation, great. If it's bat speed or attack angle, awesome. Whatever you think is important, measure that, track that, celebrate that. And I can tell you right now that as much as I love data, I'm a huge data nerd and I love it. I can tell you that data is not everything. I've coached great hitters that have bad data. Our best hitter at Fresno State this year had terrible data numbers. She had a very vertical bat. And so from a blast motion standpoint, it hated the connection. And then the one thing that I would say that we had a lot of success with is we had the players bring their phones to practice and we would have them record them. If we didn't have enough personnel, we would have the players come, they would record. And lastly, the best advice I can give you guys is try to make hitting development fun. Try to gamify it. Try to do everything you can to do that. So hopefully you guys were able to get a few things from that. I know during Q&A session, I'll be able to answer some more, but hopefully that was helpful for you with a little bit of how to develop a hitting development roadmap.
Matt, man, that's unreal. And you squeezed a 1-hour presentation into 15, maybe less minutes. So great job on that. I'm going to run through a couple different things. So one I want to kind of highlight, we got a couple of comments there for some coaches, Coach Fascia being one of them, like, thanks for giving us something on a shoestring budget, basically, to be able to put something together. Cause we keep thinking data, we're going to have to pay these thousands and thousands of dollars, where pocket radar gun, bat sensor, like you're saying, they're $75 right now. So that's about $300 Canadian. Just kidding. Everyone's got a phone and a spreadsheet, obviously. Again, love the fact too that, just go find somebody who loves baseball, jump into the math department. So your creativity, that's pretty good on that. I want to talk about a little bit here, but what about vision assessment? You talked about vision assessment. So you talk about, we're taking 100 to 200 different swings off a pitching machine or live pitching, whatever you can, the best. But then you get to vision training. Like, it sounded like as a piece of your puzzle. Can you talk about that a little bit more and why?
Yeah. So the way that we do it is this year we used the program called UHit. It was great. It was kind of a virtual video game for our kids to do, and they did that. I would tell you that I'm a big fan of Win Reality. It's another version of that that happens, and so it kind of it does it itself for you. It throws pitches. It gets reaction times. We do a lot of it. We're very fortunate to have a Hit Tracks program. So Hit Tracks allows us with the pitching machine that we have. Our pitching machine can throw a lot of different pitches, and so we can track what hitters are pitching at, swinging at bad pitches. And so, I would just create your own version of that. You could say, hey, today in batting practice, I'm going to try to throw 10 good pitches, 10 bad pitches, and have someone with a piece of paper and a pen just tracking that and saying, okay, did they make a good decision here? Did they make a bad decision? But I would tell you, if you want to look more into that, Win Reality, we used GameSense when I was at the University of Missouri. GameSense was awesome. It's a video game. It's a video system where a pitcher will throw a ball and then you have to kind of guess what pitch it is. I took it a step further by sawing off a bat, so it was just a handle. And our hitters on the big screen would take a swing with their sawed-off bat, and if it was a good decision, they got a point. If they made a bad decision, they got -1 point. And so we would track them every week with that. And again, in the SEC, I'm sure Monte has, and Bryan does as well, is TrackMan systems at the big level allow us to be able to track pitches in play and in batting practice from a plate discipline standpoint. And we create scores and systems for that. So you can create your own type of score for that. But vision assessment is huge. Don't overlook it. Whether it's really simple, swinging a good pitch, don't swing at a good pitch.
Yeah, man, great point with sawing off the bat. we use GameSense now, just speaking of this winter, and I had a kid swinging in our conference room. Same thing, did React. I actually had a kid on the computer. The other kid was actually swinging, put a hole in our drywall. So then I went and picked up one of these bad boys. Right, so you can grab the handles through here.
Nice, I like that.
Yeah, right. So the kids using that, and they're doing, when the guys are doing their bullpens and they're standing in as hitters, they're taking their hacks, but they're still taking swings without, affecting, we're indoors a lot here in Canada, so it's not affecting anything, but you get to use this a little bit at the same time. But yeah, I thought GameSense was great. And then Monte, you're on deck here super shortly. I just want to maybe touch a little bit here too. You talk about keep tracking your athletes, okay? And whatever it is that we want to do, bat speed, exit velo, whatever it is, when, how long. So like, is it in a week? Is it after X amount of games? Is it after X amount of swings? Like, what do you think? Kirk, did we lose? Matt, you still there?
Yeah, sorry. Can you say it one more time?
Yeah, sorry. So you talked about, you know, keep reassessing, keep them engaged the entire time. How long do you think that is? Is it after a week? Is it after a month? Is it after a certain amount of swings? Like, what do you suggest?
I would do it every, 2 weeks. It really depends on the coach and what the availability have. I would tell you when I was a high school coach, I made $1,900 a year, and I felt like I worked 1,900 hours a week. So, it really depends on, how much you really want to put into this thing. So, for me, I would say as best as you can, as often as you can, the more we can. But if I was to assess our hitters, every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks would be good. If you want to do it every semester or every couple months, I think that's good too. Or you have little assessments here and there, not such big ones.
Okay, because I was just wondering, like, is there an overkill where, like, we're pumping something out every single day, and then, it just they become immune to it in a sense, right? They just get over it, and you got to keep, like, what's that balance? So I guess you kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the more you change things, it's the same thing. The more you tinker with something, and I'll tell you guys, all you coaches out there, especially if you're a high school coach right now, I became a varsity head baseball coach at 23 years old. I had no clue what I was doing, but my old high school coach gave me 2 pieces of advice that to this day I hold dear to my heart. Number 1, never have a parent as your assistant coach. And I laugh because I had some, we've all had that incident. But number 2, never turn a 400 hitter into a 200 hitter. And to me, that's always resonated with me in the sense of making sure that we don't tinker too much, let the great players be great, and like people ask me all the time, if Mike Trout was to come into the cages and ask my advice is going to be, give me a high five and get out of here, because there's no reason to tinker with something like that. And so, for me, do it as often as needed, but be very mindful of that. I have some major league players that have texted me every single night after a game and sent me video and like, what am I doing here? And wanted to break down their swing. And I'm like, man, you can't do this every day. I mean, I can't be laying in bed in the middle of the night helping you out, but you can't tinker with your swing every single day. And so, I think you just got to find a balance that's right for you. And from there, realize, how often, it is for you. Again, once a month, I think is probably the best for most people.
Okay. All right, we'll get Monty in here, but Matt, maybe, I don't know what you cooked for dinner, but maybe go finish that up. We're going to get Monty and then Bryan in, so it'll give you a little bit of time. Thanks, Matt.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, guys.
Monty.
Man, that's a tough one to follow up right there. I was really want to thank Matt for coming on, and I was obviously taking notes and screenshots and everything else of the screen. I put in the chat, guys, over to the right, my cell phone number. And I've always been a little bit surprised that some coaches don't do that. I'll tell you guys if you can hear me okay, and if you can't hear me okay, or you can't understand me because I've got that Southern accent, if you don't understand me or you have a question, I want this to be more about a conversation about hitting and developing hitters and what we do and how I can help you. I'm a servant leader. That's one of the main things that I want to make sure that for 20 years I've been doing this, and the older I get, the more simpler I become, and the more I realize that it's about the kids, it's about the players. And I just want to be a servant to you guys as well. I know I don't know you, but my cell phone number is right there. Shoot me a text, give me a call at any time if you want to discuss practice design, how to develop players, things of that nature. Be more than happy to help you. I'm going to go ahead. I'm not the most tech savvy guy in the world, but I'm going to pop up my screen. Hopefully you guys can see that. And what I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit, my primary discussion tonight is going to be about timing and hitting. But I wanted to make sure that we talked a little bit about culture and what you can do within your program. If you have your cell phone, just screenshot this picture, these images as they come up. This document is massive. It's very difficult to send by email. But again, I'd be more than happy to go over it with you. But one thing that I would recommend you guys do, especially you guys at the high school level, is, you know, all coaches talk to their players and the parents of those players about, you know, this is what our program is all about, right? We're going to work hard in practice. We're going to do the right things in the classroom. We're going to do the right things in the community. We're going to work hard in the weight room. You know, we're going to turn them into fine young men, and we're going to develop them as baseball players and do everything we can to win championships. We all talk about the same things from a team culture standpoint, but yet you have to put it in paper and you have to simplify it and make sure that the players in your program understand what it means in this case to be a Clemson Tiger. Okay. So we want our guys to be Tigers. Okay. We want them to exemplify toughness, but you have to identify and define what toughness is. Okay. What toughness is. Toughness is controlled determination with no fear of failure. Play one pitch at a time and stay in the moment. And you guys know how hard that is in this game because of how much we fail. But the players that I've coached over the last 20 years who are the most mentally tough are the ones who are the most calm in the face of adversity, in the face of failure. We all get frustrated when we fail, but can you move on immediately and turn your attention to your teammates, to your behavior on the field, and to the next pitch? Defining what toughness is in your program is a big deal. The guy that's slamming the helmet and throwing his bat and screaming and yelling and taking a bat at bat with him for 2 to 3 innings after that, that guy's not mentally tough. He's mentally weak. And oftentimes kids look at the player who's physically aggressive and a little bit bigger and stronger and has that outward frustration as the tough guy on the team. He's the weak guy on the team. Okay. So as coaches, it's really important that we identify those guys who are the head cases early on that have that outward aggression and explain to them that they're mentally weak if that's the type of behavior we're going to have on the field. Mental toughness is when you face adversity and you face failure and you're able to take a deep breath and move on from it. Integrity, okay? I in Tigers is integrity, okay? Do the right thing at all times. One of the things that's real important for young men to understand is you must live your life privately and publicly the same way if you are a young man of integrity. If you are a man of integrity, live your life publicly and privately the same way. Okay? Gratitude. Gratitude, being grateful for the opportunity to play the game of baseball, excellence, relentless, and selfless. And we apply those attributes in our sport. Those are our expectations in our sport, in our school, academically, in the community as a citizen, and in the weight room. So we break it down in those 4 main areas. It's very simple. This is nothing elaborate whatsoever. But I give this to our players the first day they walk on campus when we have our team meeting. They put it in their locker. And we teach them these attributes and apply them in our 4 areas. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes at the beginning of the talk and talk a little bit about culture. And again, if you want a copy of this, I'd be more than happy to send it to you. If you can't see it, okay, I'd be more than happy to send it to you. My cell phone is underneath, and I'll share my email address with you guys as well. So let's go into baseball a little bit. We're going to go into timing here in just a minute. So another thing, too, that I really like, this is you can find this on TED Talk. If you like TED Talks, I found this a couple years ago. And this really, in my mind, sums up the life of a baseball player if you're training them the right way. You know, Matt brought up the point of training a hitter, evaluating a hitter at game speed with game complexity. That's a big deal in this game. Training hitters with machines, high velocity, spin at game distance, in game complexity, in an environment that creates stress, in an environment that creates some failure that's going to translate in the game. okay? Not just putting the ball on the tee, the feel-good drills, the tee, front toss, nice, easy, feel-good BP, mixed BP, angle BP, high velocity machine, spin, training the hitter at what he's going to see day in and day out translates in the game. And seriously, just keep it that simple, okay? Keep it that simple. But just walking through this right here, okay? The jungle tiger versus the zoo tiger, okay? A zoo tiger's life, everybody's been to the zoo. Same environment every day for that tiger. His schedule's planned out for him. He comes out, he sees the same types of people walking back and forth. Somebody comes out to feed him at a certain time. There's no surprises, there's no struggle, there's no challenge, there's no growth, and there's no fight with the tiger that's in the zoo. And the tiger that's in the jungle, his environment changes daily dependent upon food and dependent upon competition. If he doesn't kill, he doesn't eat, and it is survival of the fittest. It's a constant struggle, constant stress. Only way to win every day is to fight. And the thing you have to understand, how does this apply to baseball? Okay, is our guys will laugh when somebody breaks out a tee. I'm an anti-tee guy. That's just me personally. Okay, I think there's a place and a time for the tee with specific things that a player needs to feel. But for the most part, we want to train our players at game speed and game complexity. But that's a zoo tiger drill for us. Front toss, zoo tiger drill. Something that they can repeat over and over and over. Fungo, nice easy fungos with backspin right at them when you're taking ground balls. That's a zoo tiger drill. I can go out there, I'm 43 years old, I can catch a ground ball with backspin off of a fungo. It's not going to translate and make them a better player. Once they acquire that skill, they know how to hit a ball off a tee, move on and start to challenge that hitter and put stress on that hitter to develop and grow in his environment, okay? So that's one of the things that we talk about with our guys. We're going to practice at game speed, at game complexity, and challenge our players to grow in their environment, okay? So let's get into timing a little bit, okay? Timing, there's 3 phases of timing. Okay, most hitting coaches, when they talk about timing, they talk about the initial move or load or gather or trigger or whatever you want to call it. And it kind of begins and ends right there. If you talk to timing with 10 hitting coaches, they're going to say, well, you know, you got to get things going on time. I got to start my load or my gather on time. And they think that everything else kind of falls in place from there. Okay, but there's 3 phases of timing. And in my opinion, again, not to say that I'm right by any means, but in my opinion, the most important phase in timing is when do you start your stride? When do you get forward? Okay, so we're going to break down timing and show you guys each phase and how it translates into making your hitters more consistent. Okay, let's talk about the initial move. Okay. The initial move. Load begins on the break of the pitcher's hand. So and that translates, guys, if you're working with 7-year-olds or college guys, first day of BP, hey guys, if we want to be on time with our initial move, we're going to work off the break of the BP pitcher's hand. When I break my hands, you're going to start your load. Okay. And then we work from there. Okay. If we have kids who can't catch up to BP, and we do all our BP at 25 feet. So it's very short, it's quick, and it's firm because we want the constraint of distance to challenge that hitter to move on time, okay? And I'll go into this in a little bit with you guys and explain how we do BP. But on the break of the hands, okay, we want to start our gather in our load, okay? Lower half cues for feel with the initial move. With your back leg, we want to feel our hip get over our heel. We want to load into the ground, front leg, foot under hip. So when we pick our front foot up, we want our front foot to be under our hip. We want to feel like we load into the ground, okay? That's a big one from a feel standpoint, okay? Hey, feel like you're loading into the ground, okay? Upper half cues for feel like your hands get into your armpit, okay? We want to hinge and get forward. We want to hinge and get forward. And you'll see exactly with this video, this is a great video of Christian Yelich and his load being on time and him hinging and loading in. You'll see his rear elbow draw in and come into view. The pitcher should be able to see his elbow as he loads in. Watch this. So you can see just as the hands are breaking, he is loading into the ground. There the elbow comes in. So the lower body and the upper body are syncing up as he's moving forward. Hopefully you guys can see that video.
Yeah, we see it
He's
well.
Can you see that? That's
Yeah.
good? Okay, good. All right. So that's the initial move. Again, on the break of the pitcher's hands, we're going to load in, okay? The forward move. In my opinion, guys, this is the most critical element of timing. When do I transfer my weight to a 50-50 athletic balance position to execute my swing? Okay, so the forward move, stride, weight transfer, whatever you want to call it, it begins as the arm is coming forward. As soon as you see the elbow lay back and the arm start to come forward, you got to get forward. It's the most critical part of timing. Okay, and here's another thing I'm going to show you guys is that guys that have adjustable swings from the ground up, their hip line will be level, their eyes will be out over their toes, and their knob will be to the catcher. Again, critical move. If you want to film a hitter from the side, watch to see if his hip line is level as he's moving forward. Okay, and I'm going to show the video again. He's going to get forward right as the arm begins to come forward. Okay, so again, forward move. When he gets forward, we get forward. Okay, all right, and then the last part is rotation, which is just a swing. Rotation begins, the swing begins when the front heel hits the ground. Elite timing of rotation or the swing is a byproduct of forward move being on time. So the only way to see timing, guys, here's another thing too, and Matt brought this up. Break out your iPhone. This is from my iPhone. I just put my iPhone in my back pocket, okay? And I filmed the hitter from the side so I can sync up and watch the timing of the pitcher and the hitter at the same time, okay? So here's the video. This pitcher is 94 to 97, okay? The hitter turned down 850 grand to come to school. So this is a pretty cool matchup. But if you watch, this is how I film our hitters from a timing perspective daily. I want to be able to see on the break of the hands, are you moving? When are you getting forward? Are you getting forward as the arm is coming forward? And you have to start your swing when the ball is 8 to 15 feet out in front of home plate to catch up to a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. So you can actually slow this thing down and tell where the ball is in relationship to the hitter to see if he's rotating on time. A lot of times, if you watch from this view, if the ball is where the grass meets the dirt and he hasn't started rotation, you don't see the backside engaging the swing, he's going to be late on the fastball. Okay? So those are, again, you could see all three phases of timing. The initial move, the forward move. Sorry, let me slide this over. I don't know why. I don't know what happened there. And then rotation. Okay? Hopefully that made sense. I'm going to go into, because I don't have a lot of time, I'm going to show you guys some characteristics of elite hitters on their forward move as well, and what they look like when they get into a really good hitting position. And these are things that you can see in your hitters and make the adjustment with them, okay? The picture you see right here, the hitter on the left in orange is Seth Beer, okay? Signed for $2.2 million, first round pick, hit 27 home runs in his first year in professional baseball with the Astros and the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks traded for him, okay? The hitter on the right was the Oakland Athletics first round pick last year, Logan Davidson, signed for $2.3 million, okay? Hips are hinged. If you look at the hip line on both of these guys, you can see them hinged at the hips. Both guys, their eyes are over their toes as they get forward. 50-50 weight distribution, and they are loaded in their scap. What does that mean? If you look at Seth's rear elbow, okay, if I flex my bicep and then I take my hand and just pull it down, I really can feel my hands and my elbow pulling back into my scap. That's what elite hitters do as they're moving forward. Okay, their hips are hinged, their eyes are over their toes, 50-50 weight distribution, and they are loaded in their scap. That's 2 first-round draft picks right there. Okay, so here's another good picture. This hitter, this little right-handed hitter is 5'9", 170 pounds. He was our best hitter this year. This guy absolutely rakes. Okay, his name's Elijah Henderson. Look at the hip line. Okay, his hips are level. The knob is to the catcher. He's got a pyramid of power from his back foot to his front foot up to the middle of his body. You can see his weight is distributed evenly. And you look at all the guys in the picture over there beside him: Utley, Griffey, Gordon, Mickey Mantle, Robinson Cano, Sandoval, Abreu, Giambi, all those elite hitters, they're all in the same position at foot strike. Their hips are level as they stride forward. That's an elite movement pattern. That's what we call a hip and glute dominant load and stride. Okay? And I'm going to show you now what it doesn't look like so you can see the difference. Okay? These are forward moves that we want to fix. This is one of our hitters who's got a tremendous amount of power. He struggles with adjustability in his swing. Okay? If you look at Davis here, Davis's hip line is uneven because he loads into his rear quad. So he squats into his load. Okay? His hip line as he moves forward is going to be uneven. You can see it from the pitcher's view as well. He's more quad dominant with his load, and he stays in his rear quad as he moves forward. Okay, I'm going to show you again. If you look at this picture of Davis and look at the pictures of Seth and Logan and the difference. Those guys are in their hip and in their glutes. Davis is in his quads. Okay. Same thing with this hitter. This is another one of our hitters in our program. Swing and miss, struggles with adjustability, monster power. But he's really in his quad when he loads, and when he strides out, he's going to struggle with adjustability. So what we did, we stood him up. We got him to feel like he pulled the knob down as he loads. Just feel like you pull the knob down to hinge at the hips. And his swing, if you watch, he hinges, and it's a much different movement pattern than we have on the left. Okay, so again, quad dominant, hip dominant. And you can see this with their forward move when it comes to timing pitches and adjustability in their swings. And I've got just a nice view for you guys so you can see it again. 2 guys on the left, quad dominant versus hip dominant. Okay? So I wanted to make sure that I showed that to you guys too on their forward move. Hey, your hips are level or they're not. And those are some adjustments you can make with your hitters when it comes to working on timing with the forward move, since the forward move is so critical. Okay? Another thing, okay, timing points of emphasis. Major League Baseball hitters, if you watch a live at bat, guys, a live at bat at game speed, most major league hitters swings will start and finish at 1 second to 1.25 seconds. So from the time they initiate their load to stride to contact, most big league hitters are going to fall in a 1 second to 1.25 second range. Now, there's always outliers, but if you just sit there with a stopwatch and time hitters in the big leagues on television, that's their timing of their swing from start to finish. So one of the things that I think is very, very important, and a good friend of mine shared this with me years ago, is the hitting coordinator for the Angels, and he's a genius when it comes to hitting. Every drill that you do with a hitter should be within that time frame. So if you're going to do tee work with your guys, you need to put the stopwatch on your hitters and say, hey, you're moving too slow for this drill to work at game speed. You're a 1.2 guy. Your load, stride, and swing at contact is 1.2. You're moving too slow in this drill with this drill for it to translate in the game. Same thing off of the machine. And I'm going to show you guys, because one of the biggest complaints we get in coaching is, well, I can't time up a machine. I have a hard time timing a machine. I'm going to show you guys in my last video how to use your body in a timing pattern off of a machine if you have one that you can use. All drills should be in the hitter's swing time frame. Load at the break of the hand, stride forward when pitcher's arm moves forward, swing again when the ball's 8 to 15 feet out in front. Hips are even, novice to the catcher, eyes over toes on the forward move. Hip hinge, even hip line versus quad dominant. Okay. Here's another thing too on external cues, targets when you're training your hitters. Okay. The first thing that I've got listed here, if you did this with every hitter when they were 6 years old and never told them anything different, most of them would have pretty good swings. Okay. Get athletic in your stance. Be athletic, that universal athletic stance that we all can get in. Put the bat over your back shoulder, load when I break my hands, and try to hit a line drive off the top bar of the L screen. That is the number one thing that comes out of my mouth daily with my hitters. You would be amazed how good their swings are when all you say to them is, hey, just hit a line drive off the top bar of the L screen. Hey, when I break my hands, you start moving, get athletic, move on time, and try to hit the top bar of the L screen. It is amazing how much more consistent your hitters become in the practice environment when you just focus on hitting a good line drive off the top bar of the L screen. That external cue, that target is the best thing. That's the best hitting coach you got on the field. The top bar of the L screen. If you hit a line drive off the top bar of the L screen, that's right at 10 degrees. Okay, you get a hit in college baseball 83% of the time when you hit a ball 10 degrees. Okay, so it's pretty simple. Train in that 10 to 15 degree launch angle range in your practice environment. Okay, a couple other things real quick. For you older coaches who are coaching high school age guys, throw BP at 25 feet. We started doing this last year, and instead of throwing BP, most guys are going to throw BP at 28, 30 feet, and it's too easy for the hitters from a timing standpoint. They also hook more balls. They'll get out front more. They're a little bit more inconsistent the farther back you are. You throw BP at 25 feet, the ball gets on top of them. They have to move on time. It will force them to hit more balls into the middle of the field. Okay. And one of the things that we started doing that we felt like made a big difference is we would push the batting cage up real close to the hitter. Okay. Because we wanted the top bar of the batting cage to be as far out into the infield as possible. And then all of our rounds would be over under. It had to be over the L screen and under the top bar of the batting cage when we took batting practice on the field. Okay, so we just call them over-under rounds. Under the top bar of the batting cage, that means I'm on time, because if I'm late, I'm going to pop it up in the top of the cage. And it's got to be over the top bar of the L screen, so I'm on time to win the front of the plate to hit line drives into the big part of the field. Okay, so we just call them over-under constantly. Okay, bat sensors, Matt brought them up. We use Diamond Kinetic bat sensors. We love them. Why? Because of timing. So many people think that the bat sensor is all about swing metrics. They're not all about swing metrics. They're also critical in determining if your guys are on time or not. If your hitters are late, 95% of the balls that are popped up into the infield have a negative attack angle. Okay, a downhill negative attack angle. You know what that means for your hitters? More times than not, they're simply late. They're catching the ball on the downswing. Okay, so we look at attack angle data simply because if the hitter's 5 degrees positive, he's on time. Okay, and then Yelich, just another example on Yelich. His average attack angle 2017, 2.7 degrees. 2018, it was 8.3. He won the MVP. Machines in the practice environment, and then I'm done. Dirk, I'm sorry. I think I might have went over a couple minutes. I apologize. If you watch this video over here, so what are we doing there? Okay. This video was sent to me a couple years ago. Okay. Instead of just holding the ball up and shooting it down the ramp when you're feeding a machine, take your arm and stand in the stretch and put it on the top of the ramp where the hitter can see your arm. He can see the release point when you hold the ball up from the stretch position. When you lift your leg, when you get to the top of your leg lift, start loading. Now, every time you work off of a machine, your hitter, these guys, hold on. All right. Get out of there, Bryan Green, trying to jump in. I'm trying to hit play on the video. I'll show it to you again just so you can see it. This is the best way to feed a machine. Another thing too, if you work with catchers, when do you want your catchers to skip to their position to set up? When the pitcher breaks his hands. So it's good for timing on bunting. It's good for timing off hitting. It's good for timing off catching drills as well. We teach our catchers, hey, hop to the position, your location where you want to set up when the pitcher gets to the top of his windup. Okay? So again, lay your arm right there on the top ramp and feed the machine. And now your guys can time the machine. That's all I got for you guys.
Oh, that's all?
That's it.
All right. Before we jump in, Bryan, yeah, man, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of notes here. I'd love to talk a little more culture. We're going to give Bryan his chance, then we'll open up some stuff to questions later. I just want to get to one question here because we're going to get to Bryan. You know, you call it foot strike, basically. You know, my terminology, I'm looking heel plant, toe touch. We're talking about getting hitters to that attack position, let's say that good position. But more and more hitters that I'm seeing when they get that heel plant or foot strike, whatever the case may be, the elbow's already gone, the bat's already wrapped back here at that strong position.
Right.
Is that something that's going to come with time? Is that something through drills? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Can I show you guys real quick, if we have time, a drill that we do to get the hitters to feel the position the bat should be in?
Okay.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Okay. And if I can't, let's see here.
Right, because it just seems like when they commit so early to the bat heel plant and everything's already gone, so they'll off speed, they're done. The pitch has to be in the perfect spot if they're not in that strong position.
Right. I'm going to show you guys real quick if you'll give me 1 second. I know Bryan's ready to go, so I don't want to take too much of his time. Give me 1 second, and I am opening up if I can. Okay, can you guys hold on 1 second. All right, I got to come back to here. Wait a minute. All right, let me share my screen. Where is, let's see here. Trying to see if I can pull up. Let me see if I can. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see.
Dude, you got to clean that desktop.
Okay, guys. Yeah, I know. All right. So this is what we call a Basu ball drill. I love this. My guys love it. It forces the hitter to be in a 50-50 position, heels into the ground, okay, or he'll fall off the Basu ball, and it forces him to learn how to load properly. This is a drill a good friend of mine in professional baseball showed me years ago. I'll play a couple more. He has to be 50-50 in a really athletic position to balance on the ball. And you can take BP from here. Look at that swing. It's pretty good from a path standpoint. So that is a drill. That's a drill that we do to get guys to really feel you isolate by getting into the ground with the Basu balls. It'll fatigue their legs because they have to be so strong in their legs, but they have to load properly with their upper body, and it will clean up bat paths like you would not believe. It's my favorite drill. When we go into the cage, once we warm the guys up, we immediately go to the Basu ball, and we do a ton of Basu ball work. Got a question, what speed are you throwing BP at when you're at 25 feet away? We're throwing at about 52 miles an hour, but I don't think it necessarily matters. It's more the constraint of the distance that makes it challenging for the hitter to move on time. I think that's the critical part, again, why we take BP at 25 feet, why we push the batting cage up tight to the hitter, is because we want them to constantly move in an environment where they're not thinking about timing. They know if they're on time, if they're hitting line drives right over the top bar of the L screen. If they're hitting balls in the top of the cage, they know they're late. And my cue for guys when they're late like that, I just say, hey, when he moves, you move. When he moves, you move. And once they start to understand that if I'm not on time when the BP guy's breaking his hands, as soon as he moves, I got to start moving so that I can make the adjustment I need to make from a timing perspective, because we're trying to develop hitters, guys. This is the one thing I'll leave with you guys. You're developing hitters, not swingers. So many hitting coaches out there are trying to make a living on developing swings. We're trying to develop hitters, guys that compete in the box at game speed. So to me, that's always the focus should always be about being athletic, moving on time, and hitting the ball in the middle of the field. If I hit the ball in the middle of the field, I'm on time. I got a good bat path. I've got a pretty good swing if I can square the baseball up consistently to the big part of the field. So I'm much, much bigger. And one more thing too, and we'll get into the Q&A. I would like to talk, Dirk, a little bit about how we train these movement patterns in the weight room, because I've got some good things I can share with the guys who have kids who are old enough to train in the weight room. And I'll go over that later, because I want to get to the two-strike warrior, Bryan Green, because I know he's pumped up and ready to go.
All right, thanks, Monty. We'll get back to you shortly. Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Good, JG. How you doing? Thanks for having us on.
Pretty excited about the draft, bud. How you doing with that?
Yeah, it's not too often at New Mexico State University you have a seventh rounder, so really exciting. Happy for the Gonzalez family and Nick and the program, and that was a really cool day for all of us just to see that stuff going on. So I've been running ragged and just sitting on the draft on every pick.
Before we get into two-strike hitting, which I'm a huge fan of, some we talked about a little bit yesterday, because I think you're proud for the program in New Mexico State. We talked about a couple of things yesterday about the work you do with your program and your players, and I think this is a testament, probably to that kid. You turn him into a better person, not just a better hitter, or whatever the case may be. Special Olympics, when you were in New Mexico, you worked with, and you're still, you're over at Washington. You're again working with Special Olympics. I talked to you a little bit about here. We started a program with the Blue Jays. It's called Challenger Baseball, which is a great program. I know Brampton's running it, Hamilton's running it. A lot of great programs in Ontario running that program. Can you talk a little bit, maybe 2-3 minutes on that specifically and what that does for your players and how it trickles to hitting?
It does trickle to hitting. I just think, if you develop, and I think it's our responsibility as a coach, but I mean, we've been entrusted, whether it be at a high school, collegiate level, that we want to make the school or the university or the community better. But, at the end of the day, we all want to win. And I just think if you develop the person first, the player's going to come second. So, for us, the trickle down of what we do in the community, and Monte led that on his first slide. That's such a big deal. We're talking hitting right now, but we've got to develop people first, and we've got to develop a relationship of trust. We've got to develop a relationship of perspective and understanding how fortunate we all have it. So we spend a ton of time here. It's so important to me. It's very personal to me as well, but we have a 12-day culture training period that we spend time on with our kids, developing people first. And if you can attack the person first, I think you got a chance to attack the locker room second. And I think if you can attack third, with those two things happening, I think you got a chance to have a better relationship with your player when it comes to hitting, when his perspective is different. So I know we're talking hitting. I don't want to veer off too much, but I would really invite any opportunity for all of the coaches out there. Boy, spend time on your kids as people, spend time on your kids as person first, and spend time in that locker room, because that's when you're in the cage, in the fall. You can have honest conversations, and maybe your hitter is a little bit more vulnerable than before. And if he is, then that leads to real conversation. Nick Gonzalez, I'll never forget the day that I opened my eyes, and when I had no clue your bat speed was going to be that special. And I don't know if his was, he probably did. He was so confident as a player, but it was just experimentation. And we do that as hitting coaches. We want to simplify, but it all starts with trust. So get out in the community, make your players better people. If you do, I really think you got a chance to impact them as players. And it's just so important. It's, again, for me, it's just part of the winning process. It's one of our 3 pillars, inspire the community. So it's a big part of what we do, but at the end of the day, we want to win. We want to be successful, but we also want to impact people's lives. You've got a chance to really impact their swing if you impact their person first stuff. So I would say dive into that. JG, I know the stuff you're doing is great. We're head down 12 days in Pullman, and we were in New Mexico State too.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah.
All right, man, give it to us. 2-strike hitting. I'm all ears.
Well, yeah, this is a fun thing to talk about. I've got a good one here. This is just I'll start here. But just in terms of a 3-slide thing, I'll start with just what we do. Just in terms of these 3 slides, and I think everybody can see these 3, but I wanted to show these as opposed to a slideshow. Because JG, just down at the bottom, our core values as well. Monte touched on that, and we define that too. But what does it mean for Go Cougs? It starts with team first integrity, and I think that's a really good lead-in into 2-strike hitting. It's team first integrity is everything for all of us. Are you going to place the needs of the team above your own as a hitter in the box? A lot of times we lose sight of the fact that when you're in the box, you are competing for your team in the box. And as soon as you enter that zone, there's 34 other guys looking at you in the dugout and depending on you to compete. So that's why 2-strike approach is so important to me. So I'll start with this slide right here, just the middle one. But I really think, JG, that it's a really big deal to me. Look, we just had Nick, and I'm probably at Washington State because of Nick Gonzalez and Joey Ortiz, and they were a 1st and 4th round combo up the middle, and their ratio is probably plus 30 with walk and HVP and strikeout, and they had real power numbers. And I just think when it comes to 2-strike hitting, for me as an offensive coach, I think it's so critical that we start there, and I don't think enough of us do. I think Monte said it. We're trying to develop hitters, not swingers. And part of the hitting process is understanding what you're doing prior to 2-strike and then what you're trying to do at 2-strike. And I think so many of the youth level and the club coach business right now is really on swing and not necessarily responsible for production. Monte and I, we're graded on how we hit and how many runs we score at the end of the day. How many runs are we scoring? Period. End of story. Well, what leads to run production? What leads to run scoring? Well, on base percentage. Well, what leads to on-base percentage. Again, start backwards, in my opinion. I think start with two-strike approach. We do. We did it at New Mexico State. I achieved a goal. We achieved a goal as a program. We had always had to have more walks than strikeouts, just statistically. And then on top of that, we led the country in hit by pitch. So our on-base percentage led the country in 2019, which led to leading the country in runs scored. And I just think it starts with two-strike approach. I really do. I think you have to pound it. I think it's important, and I think it really moves into what Monty was just talking about earlier, but there's got to be a covenant of the team. Our Go Cougs acronym, Team First Integrity, we're commitment driven, Cougar Family First, and all those things, competitive toughness, we're always present. But those are things that's the responsibility of the coach to pound that every day. I think a lot of us throw those acronyms and those core covenants and core characteristics up on walls. Then we don't revisit them every day. We talk about Team First Integrity and everything every day. I bring it up, and you have to keep it alive, and that keeps up two-strike hitting. So moving into two-strike hitting, I think there's three keys to the two-strike development. I think you put it into these three buckets, but understanding your philosophy and how it leads to slugging improvement, what you're doing mechanically with that, and what's the approach, and then drills and training. So I think it's really important that you break that up into simplistic goals of what you want to do. And just starting with philosophy and slugging, look, we're trying to score runs. We're trying to hit doubles. We're trying to hit home runs. We're trying to drive the baseball. What leads to that, in my opinion? Having a two-strike approach. We've all coached guys that we know were in the dugout, and when that hitter gets to two strikes, you're praying that the fastball doesn't get elevated or the slider doesn't get buried, and it's helpless. So, and hitting with two strikes is really hard. You know, it's a batting average of 180 to 230. I mean, at the major league level, it's very difficult. So let's work for 250 at the college level. Let's work for 270 at the high school level, and let's work to put the baseball in play. We're not competing against major league infielders at the college and high school level. We're competing against college and high school infielders. We're competing with bad facilities. We're competing with bad fields. We're competing with different facilities. Put the ball in play, get a chance to get on base. If you get on base, you get a chance to score runs. So I just think it's really important. So, but from a philosophy standpoint, JG, I just think if we can sell to our kids and understand, look, guys, this is back here. Can we get really good back here? Because if we do, we can be really confident on the front end to major in the marginal. And I heard that from John Cohen before I got to Kentucky. But you know, can we do a tremendous job of zone awareness? Can we do a tremendous job of not expanding from knee to belt? Can we do a tremendous job of 14 inches on the plate or even 12 inches on the plate, depending on where you stand, until he gets two strikes? And I think when you do that as a hitter and you clearly get that, and it's so important that the kids get that, hey, back here we got some confidence. Back here, we've got a chance to compete. I'm not afraid to hit with two strikes. So until I get to two, I'm going to look to drive the baseball. But you can't have that mentality until we've affected them from a confidence standpoint on the back end. So that's where the philosophy standpoint from the big picture, and then obviously the relationship between two-strike adjustment and slugging and OPS. I just see it very clearly that way. And again, if you're a hitting coach in Las Cruces, New Mexico, there are years you can look really smart, JG. So I'm very cognizant of that. Okay, it's 4,000 feet. The wind howls. Who's kidding who? I'm aware of that. And when we were in Kentucky, you know, that right field wall before the new stadium was built was pretty shallow out there. So I do get that. But I think the sell is still the same.
So you literally, I'm sorry to interrupt here, like literally a reverse engineering process where you went, let's build a confidence from the back end, and then we'll deal with when you're 0-0, 1-0, 3-1, 2-0. Sorry to jump in on that. I'm just trying to wrap my head around that.
No, I'm glad you did. And 100%, that's how we do it. And we start with our drills in the fall. We do a lot of wide. We do a lot of preset. We do a lot of slow stuff. We do a lot of opposite field stuff. We do a lot of depth contact hitting. We do anything that we can do to back the baseball up prior to really getting into, I mean, our mechanics package early in the fall is indirectly working a lot of what you just said. But yes, just like with your vision of anything that you do, you know, when you step into a living room with a recruit, you step into an interview with an administrator, there's a 3-year vision essentially. And it starts with, what's this going to look like in 3 years? Who are we going to look like? Where are we going to be? And then I just think you reverse engineer it. I think it's easier. So, but for us, offensive approach starts with 2-strike hitting. And that's what builds into slugging. And it builds into obviously slugging and on-base percentage. So we do reverse engineer it. So how do you get it? Because it all sounds great and all that, but I think there's 2 things. From a mechanics and approach standpoint, you've got to demand it as a coach. It's got to be non-negotiable in my opinion. You're either in or you're out as a coach. And again, that's
Coach Bryan, can I just interrupt for a second?
Please.
We've got a nasty storm going through Ontario, and I just got an update here from a coach who was on the webinar that between London and Woodstock in Ontario, folks, there's a tornado warning, and that is headed towards the Cambridge Waterloo area, and then ultimately the Hamilton, Niagara, and into the Toronto area. So if everybody just can stay alert and maybe keep your weather network on as well, so you can just be aware of it. We don't want to see anybody get hurt while we learn from some great coaches who are giving their time very willingly. Sorry, Coach Green.
Oh God, no problem. So with that, I think it's so important, JG, that it becomes, whether it's philosophical or not. I mean, there are programs and coaches or the big league level where the philosophy is, hey, we want 3 rips. We don't want 2. We don't want to go big for 2 and then put it in play. We want 3 rips. I think it's really important as a coach that you understand that, just in the sense of what's important to you. Is it important to you as a coach? Because what that leads into are your drills and your training. And I think so many of us, a lot of times we just get caught up in what we're training and what we're drilling and what we're doing. Does that match up with your philosophy? For me, I'm the head coach, but I'm the hitting coach. So what's important to me? Driving the baseball, slugging percentage, home runs, on base percentage, HBP, 2-strike approach. So we build that into practice. And those are non-negotiables for us. So the sell is very simple in college baseball or high school baseball. I just think if you want to be a 300 hitter, you got to be able to handle the outer half. If you want to hit 220 and have a hole in your swing, then be guided towards the inner half. You're going to see the ball 8 out of 10 times on the outer half. If you're going to have a hole, have it in. That builds into the HBP thing. That's a different conversation, but it really just becomes a program decision that you're going to make. So for us, what I really got excited about at New Mexico State was, all of us know 2-strike hitting, just in the sense of what's easier to play defense. How do you play defense as a hitter? Well, you get your feet grounded, you get on the ground, maybe you choke up, maybe you move up onto the box on top of the plate. You have an opposite field approach. You want to delay your decision. You're just thinking about contact. Those are all things that we've all heard of, but I'm a big believer now that we're going to have a 2-strike approach, and you figure out which way is best for you, and then we don't interfere with the hitter's rhythm. And I think that's so important. So, even looking back to 19 at New Mexico State, or this year at 20 in our 16 games at Washington State, where we struck out the second fewest amount of times in the pack, which we led it last year. So that was a real improvement for us. But some guys don't like to get wide, and some guys don't like to get their foot down early. Some guys don't like to choke up. Some guys like to stay the same in the box. I think it's really important as a coach that that from a relationship standpoint. 10 years ago, I'm telling everybody I want to see it. And I think that was more for me, that I could see the buy-in visually, but that necessarily wasn't best for the program or the player. In that 19 offense at State, we had guys who were spread out to the toe early, modified lower leg kick, no change at all. Some choked up, but it was theirs and they owned it. And I think there's a sense of pride with that too. So I think that's really important that you have to determine for yourself as a coach.
Bryan?
Yeah.
During your season here this year, you had 3 last inning wins. 3 wins where you came back last inning and win. Was 2 strikes a huge part of those 3 wins? I'm going to make an assumption there.
They were actually. Washington State had won an opening game in 10 years, and obviously we're always on the road from a weather perspective. In Pullman, it's cold the first couple of weeks, but and our first 2 come from behind wins, including opening night. We had 2 strike, 2 out knocks into the 4-hole, both right-handed hitters, to open up our season. It was pretty exciting, and we were able to put that into our bucket. But that is a huge part of it. Is the grind, the fight. And I think sometimes hitters lose sight of the fact that if you're battling in the third, that can lead to something in the ninth. Maybe you get to the bullpen an inning earlier, and maybe the ninth inning guy ended up coming. And you've seen him for 7 hitters versus 3. It's just so important in terms of stretching a guy. Yeah. Better, and we're excited about it. I'll tell you that's the most important. For the hitters, just don't move, and we don't chase, we don't move.
All right. I think Bryan was having problems with his Wi-Fi a little bit earlier, so maybe we'll get him to come back. Matt, if you're still around, and Monty.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're there. There you go, Bryan.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys.
It's all good. I know you're having some Wi-Fi issues. It's all good.
Yeah. No, we're certainly mobile today, but that's okay. And then the last thing, guys, is just I don't know if is JG, is that Sharon with you?
No, not right now, but I know you're at the part with skills, the drills, basically. That's where you're at right now.
Correct. Yeah, I'll move that off to the side. But, when it comes to the drills and the training, I think that's one of the things that we as coaches, when it comes to 2 strikes or whatever we're doing, I just think it's so important that we as coaches give our kids the reps. If your shortstop's bad at the backhand, let's give him some reps. If your leadoff guy can't bunt and drag and knock one down for a knock, let's get him the reps. I don't think, and it's been my experience, that there just are not enough repetitions for 2-strike hitting. So I think it's critical that you put that into your practice daily organization. It was important to you. It's important to me. What's the most important thing in developing a 2-strike approach? What are all hitters afraid of? Getting jammed, getting beat, wanting to be early. Well, turn that into drill work. How do you do that? Have them work on fastballs in with the machine. Have them work on tees, hard in off. And I mean hard in off. We have what's called in off, and we have in. One of the tee drills that we do is we ask our guys to hit the ball at the middle, and the tee is the middle of their body. An absolute jam in off pitch. But you train them and give them the reps to be confident that, hey, you know what? I can fight that pitch off. And if we give our kids the confidence to do that, you've got an opportunity to at least train them to not be early. Because as we all know, what creates chase? Early decisions. So what is so important? Well, in off. And then we work in, which is just a little more up front, but we don't want to pull that yet. We want to try to hit that through the 6 if you're right-handed, and through the 4 if you're left-handed. And then we also work off. And what does that mean? Well, wide umpire, particularly at the high school level, non-TV game midweek at the college level. But, off. Give your guys the opportunity to train a ball that's 2 balls off, where you got a wide umpire, and that's part of the game. Train them so when they know that, they got a chance to get better. We actually have those 3 things within our T program, and I just think it gives you a lot of confidence to make your guys really wait and delay. And then you've got to train your guys, too, with machines. We all know that the breaking ball that starts middle, that moves east-west to a ball. Give your guys the opportunity to maybe back off the plate and say, this pitch right here, if it starts here, leave it alone and take it. Now move up onto the plate. If the pitch starts at your left shoulder, this is the one you want to swing at. And you're giving them their preparation on east-west slider chase, as well as north-south slider chase or curveball chase. And I just think that's got to be a part of your daily routine. I don't think enough of us do that, and I'm speaking from experience. I was the guy that said, get your foot down early, get up on top of the plate, choke up, have an Oppo approach, and grind and battle. But we weren't being fair to our players. You got to give them the repetitions. If you expect them to be great, you got to give them the reps, and that's the whole deal. So I think that's really important when it comes to that piece, is be very intentional with that in your practice planning. Again, JG, if it's important to you. If it's not, don't. But if it is, I think you got to be intentional with your practice.
And it comes back, you were saying about know your clientele, right? Like build that relationship and they'll buy in with you and what you're selling. If that's what you're selling, they need to buy it. If not, somebody else will play.
Yeah, and when it comes to the college coach, I just think, hey, look, this is what we're going to do in college. This is what you're going to do when you get here. You're going to go out in the community. We're going to have a two-strike approach. You're going to take HPP. You're going to be vulnerable. You're going to have to get up and rip your shirt off in front of a group. This is what we do here. If you don't like that, it's probably not the right place. Nothing wrong with that. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're always trying to create alignment.
I like it. All right. I'll jump a couple things with you. Then we're going to open up to all three for some questions. We got fired in here a little bit. But Bryan, I didn't want you to downplay, man. Like you're talking about New Mexico, the wind, so on and so forth, Kentucky, short perch. Hey, man, the field was the same dimension for the other team you were playing, and nobody else was leading the country in the same things you were leading the country. So I don't think you need to downplay what was happening where you were at. So good on you, man.
No, thank you. Appreciate that.
Monte, I'm going to jump in here. We got a quick one here. People are asking, or someone is asking, can you talk to us a little bit more when you're talking about the knob of the bat to the catcher? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just, you know, more than anything else, it's a universal position that all elite hitters, if you watch elite hitters from the side view, again, I'll, let's see if I can share my screen. I'll show you guys again. Well, hold on. I got to be allowed to do so. Okay. All right.
Derek has now given you permission.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Give me 1 second. I'll pull up. I'll just show you, you know, just show you guys. I mean, you tell me, as far as knob to the catcher, that's Utley, Griffey, Gordon, Jones, Palmero, Hamilton, Votto, Maurer, all the way down to Bonds and Ruth. Every single one of those guys, if you look at where the knob of the bat is, it's to the catcher. Now, one thing that you'll also see with hitters as far as an elite position to hit is a lot of these guys, not all of them, and if I could pull, if I had a different view, a lot of these guys you'll see, especially like in Gordon right here, if I were to draw a line from his front elbow through his front shoulder, it's the same line that the bat is in, okay? And then if you take that line and connect straight above his helmet, he's got a square, okay? He's got a box. Hitters, all they do is they get in that box and they rotate that box. If you watch elite hitters, that's what they do. They just get into that position to hit. And I've heard coaches for years talk about, don't wrap the bat. Like hitters aren't wrapping the bat. If you just take your hand, your top hand, and you're sitting here on this Zoom right now, okay, and just take your hand wherever you held the bat. Doesn't matter if it's high, low, doesn't matter. Just hold the bat with your top hand in your stance where you hold it, and then just take your hand into your armpit. That's pretty much where every hitter, an elite hitter, is going to get to when he swings the bat. And then if I put the other hand, all I got to do is just feel like I take my hands into my armpit, regardless if I start flat or low. That's where I'm going to get to. That's a knockout punch. That's what we call the knockout position. And it just happens that all the guys in the big leagues that make millions of dollars, they're all getting in that position. Why do they get in that position? I'm not sure, but it's just a natural position that elite hitters get into.
Thank you. Matt, I'm sitting there beside, I got axe bats, the long one, the heavy one, the youth one, a variety of different tools basically to be able to use. A fan, not a fan, you know, in regards to technology, what do you think of the, you know, or some ideas like, hey, yeah, it's a great idea. If you can't afford those, what else could a youth coach use or purchase?
Yeah, so we use variability training every single day in practice. So we use plyo balls. I love hitting plyo balls every single day. And then we have all kinds of different bats. We've got end-loaded bats with 2 rolls of tape around it. Same thing with, we put some lead tape on some handles. So you don't have to buy the axe bats or the long bats. You know, I buy little league bats or softball bats. I mean, I'll find all kinds of ways to do it. So if you were to look in our shed, you'll find all kinds of different bats. And for our hitters, they train variability every day. Long bat, short bat, plyo balls, a heavy bat, light bat, and just when you can train variability, not only are you building bat speed, that's great, but you're building barrel awareness. And so for our hitters, a lot of them, for an example, we have a lot of hitters across the country that don't side bend and hip hinge very well. And so to get to low pitches, they arm bar or they reach, they bend their knees. And so by using a short bat, for example, and attacking them low, they have no choice but to hip hinge and side bend. And so, if you can make, constraint drills that basically forces them to do it without even having to talk about it, or, to me, that's the best thing. I mean, my goal as a hitting coach is to trick them into getting better. When I was coaching at the University of South Carolina, my boss did an interview at the end of the year, and she said, I don't really think Coach Lyle really changed our swings very much. And I kind of laughed because we had done so much swing work over the years, but we didn't talk about changing our swings that often. I basically tricked them into making all these swing changes and by doing it with drills. And so I think you can do a really good job of variability with different bats and weights without even talking about it. As long as the coach knows what's going on and it's a plan, you're just not throwing stuff out there just to try it. I think there's an advantage there.
So that's the question I had right there. So would you go example, first round, we're going light, we're going heavy, we're going regular bat? Is that an example? Like, what would it look like?
Well, I can tell you, like for me, in the college format, like in the fall, we have the ability to really dig in. So we do a lot of drills and we do a lot of swing development and timing, and we do a lot of things in the fall that are developing the swings. But when the spring comes, like it's like high school season starts and games start, college, all the swing stuff's gone. We're doing 90% game-like drills. We got machines in every cage, live arms. We're talking about two-strike approach. We're talking about timing. We're talking about plate discipline. And so, we don't spend very much time doing a lot of drills, front toss, tee. We hardly ever do tee. If you were to look at our practice for an hour and 15 minutes of hitting, there's 5 minutes of tee, and it's really just a warm-up to get our bodies going for tee work. And so, I would just say all your development time, use that in the off season, use that in the fall. And then when spring comes, it's like timing, plate discipline. And, one of the best advice I can give you guys when it comes to your hitting development plans is, and I stole this from Max over at Driveline, is putting them into 3 buckets. So you could probably do this right now. All of you guys who have been coaching your players, you could probably put your players in 3 buckets. So bucket number 1 is your exit velocity bucket. Okay. And so what I mean by that is, which hitters you have, they need more power. They need to hit the ball harder. They need to hit the ball better. So those players I'm going to put in that bucket. Okay. These are hitters that their biggest issue that they have is power. They're not driving the ball at all. They need to get in the weight room. They need to get stronger. The second bucket is swing movement bucket, guys. So they've got some power. They can drive the ball, but they got bad attack angles. They got bad swings. They're swinging arms and not using their hips very well. They're swing movement buckets. And then on the third bucket, you have your plate discipline bucket. You've got hitters that they're hitting the ball hard. They've got some good swing mechanics. And so we're always trying to move players into that bucket of timing, play discipline, approach as fast as we possibly can and not get stuck. A lot of coaches get stuck in that middle bucket of swing mechanics and drills, swing mechanics. We're working on that. And you can go back to that, but let's get as far as we can into that third bucket as quickly as we can. But I think a lot of coaches, they skip bucket 2 and skip bucket number 1. And I can tell you right now, I can name 3 players on our roster that my best advice to them would be to get in the weight room, get stronger, get better that way.
Yeah. So that's where I'm going here. So Bryan, you're up. Monte, you're on deck. So I know you wanted to talk about weight room, so I'm going to give you that opportunity. A couple of drills you said you'd like to use. So I'm going to come to you here in a second. Bryan, how are you implementing 2-strike approach in practice? Matt's talking about the fall. Like, what's that look like for you? If I'm looking at an hour of hitting, what's that look like in that pocket of practice? What can we do as youth coaches or high school coaches?
Yeah, and I know Monte's going to hit that, but the weight room is so important. And I know you're like, wait a minute, that's not two-strike hitting in practice, but we're talking about delaying decisions. We're talking about starting later with regards to committing to a pitch. If we've got a 4 o'clock workout in the fall and it's 3 o'clock, we're done. And I think you have to be very intentional with that with your players. Put development first with strength, because with regards to two-strike hitting, if your kids aren't strong, they're not going to be able to make late decisions. I mean, you look at Gonzalez today, maybe has the fastest bat in the country, can really start late, and he developed it through the weight room. So this is so important. But with regards to doing that in practice, I just think you have to be intentional. What does it look like with us? You've got a two-strike T station where it's, again, in, off, off. That's one of our stations. Our BP typically looks anywhere from 8 to 10 groups. And it's just groups of 2, 20 hitters, 18 hitters. But when we do that, it's 5 minutes, and guys we work in a rotation. So what does that mean? Well, we have our T station for 2 strikes. We have a breaking ball 2-strike where it's split up. And then in batting practice on the field. So there's 3 stations that are dedicated for us daily to 2-strike hitting. That's part of our BP round. That works right into the spring. We start with our BP round in September, and we work it for 6 months. I mean, it's the same thing every day. We start off with 2-strike hitting. As soon as you get into the cage, your first round of 5 is 2-strike hitting. Then it becomes an execution round. Then it becomes an execution round and opposite field hitting. And then we start to spray the ball and drive the field. But so we intentionally put 3 groups or 3 stations that are designed to improve that skill. The rest of it is swing development and hitting and rhythm. So for me, I don't spend we're going to do our bunting and we're going to do our execution, but I just think it's really important as a hitting coach. What's going to happen to your hitters most? Well, they're going to hit with 2 strikes. They're going to hit without 2 strikes, and they're going to need to drive the baseball. Spend your time there. Don't spend your time unless you're going to bunt like crazy. I think a lot of us get caught up in that stuff because you're supposed to. Just be intentional with it. For us, again, what's it look like in practice? It's 3 stations daily in batting practice every day.
Okay, perfect. Monty, you're going to be up on strength and conditioning. Matt, I'm going to give you a heads up on this one. I'm going to ask you about ratios and live BP, machine, front toss, T-work, like what kind of ratios we looking at, and do we vary them throughout the season, or could we? Okay, that's your heads up. Monty, strength and conditioning.
Yeah, I wanted to share with you guys some things that we've been doing in the weight room. And it's really simple. There's 3 things that we started to look at when it comes to the hinge of the hips with hitters, along with pitchers. Believe it or not, for you pitching guys out there, pitchers make the same move from leg lift down the mound that the hitter does when he picks his front foot up and strides towards the pitcher. The guys that we have found, we've got a young man that could go in the 2nd round tomorrow, and another one that could go somewhere in the 4th or 5th round. Both those guys, super athletic, both throw in the mid-90s. They both have level hips too when they're moving down the mound. So one of the things that our strength coach started to look at when it came to trying to get hitters and pitchers to hinge properly, whether it's they're lifting their leg in their pitching delivery or picking their stride foot up to get forward towards the pitcher, is that we have to train those movements in the weight room. We have to train the proper hip hinge movement in the weight room and get our guys, especially with their lower body movements in the weight room, to be hip and glute dominant versus quad dominant. Okay. So here's 3 moves that I would recommend. If you have kids who are old enough to lift weights now, I'm not, and there are even some movements that you can do. If you have younger kids, you would obviously have to just adjust what you're using from a strength training standpoint. Okay. The pitchers that we have on our staff, that one's going to be a 2nd rounder, one's going to probably be a 4th or 5th rounder that throw exceptionally hard. They brace their core, okay, when they're moving down the mound. When they break their hands, like if you sit here right now, okay, and pull your ribs in, just as you're sitting in the chair, pull your ribs in into a shell, okay, and brace your core, okay? So every move that we do in the weight room, we want to brace our core. So when we squat, we immediately went to a safety bar squat. If you don't know what a safety bar squat is, look it up. Okay, we no longer do the barbell squat. Why? Because that puts the player in a ribs out position, a big chest position. Okay, when you see pitchers, when they break their hands and they get ribs out, those guys don't make jumps in velocity. When you see a hitter who's quad dominant, when he strides, a lot of times he'll get ribs out as he starts to engage his swing. We don't want our players to move with a ribs out position, okay? So what we started to look at is instead of having them squat, instead of having them do a pull-up, we immediately brace the core, get their elbows in, and we do a chin-up. We get to the safety bar squat so that we can tuck our core, brace our core, chin down. Don't look up when you squat. So many coaches out there teaching their guys, hey, look up to the sky when you do a squat. Look up. No, look out and down. Brace your core when you do a squat. Use the safety bar. If you don't have a safety bar, hey, use a kettlebell. Do a goblet squat with a kettlebell or a dumbbell so you can brace your core and hinge at the hips and use your glutes and your hips versus being quad dominant. When you do a hex bar deadlift, that's another big move in baseball right now. You walk into any weight room where there's a college baseball program training or a pro team training, they're going to use a hex bar deadlift. Brace your core, tuck your chin down, and move the weight. If you see guys starting to bring their chest up, they're going to flare their out. They're going to be quad dominant with their movement patterns. Last but not least, heavy kettlebell swings. The heavy kettlebell swing, if you do it properly, you are hinging your hips and firing your hips out of the hinge position to train the correct motor pattern. And also you have to be level with your hips to fire a kettlebell correctly. So we do a lot of heavy kettlebell swing, hex bar deadlift, safety bar squat, chin up. Anytime we press, we put our palms facing each other so we can keep our elbows in closer to our body and brace our core and press. When you bench press, if you get guys that want to push their chest out, you're putting them in a non-athletic position that's going to translate poorly on the field. Whatever you do, brace the core to make sure that they're in an aligned hip position and hinging properly in those movements. And that's one of the things that we started to do with our guys, and it made a big difference with how they moved on the field.
Monty, I want to jump in on that. Remember Eric Cressy talking about if you're not bracing your core, it's like shooting a cannon out of a canoe, basically. And I always stuck in my head. It makes so much sense.
Yeah, we just noticed it with guys with pitching, especially pitching deliveries. The guys who are ribs out as they're going down the mound, the guys that we've had in our program that do that, they may squat 450 pounds, but they don't make jumps in velocity. Whereas the guys who brace their core and their hips are level and move down the mound before they break their hands and deliver the pitch, those guys always make the bigger jumps in velocity. And also, again, ribs in, aligned hips on the forward move with the hitters. Those guys are more adjustable with their swings and just purely better hitters. So that's a commonality that we see, and we started to make sure that in the weight room we were training the right movement patterns to hinge and tuck our core, embrace our core.
All right, Monty, appreciate it. All right, Matt, you're going to take us home. You're the leadoff, and you're going to take us home on this one. Question again, ratio of live BP, machines, front toss, T-work, so on and so forth, and do you vary them throughout the season or fall, so on and so forth?
Yeah, so in the fall we do a lot. We do a lot more, front toss than we probably would like in BP. But my goal as a coach is to make practice harder than the games. So a lot of times our players complain at the end of practice, like, man, that I couldn't touch that machine today. BP was way too hard. And so I would say, make practice as difficult as possible as long as you're seeing growth out of it. And for a while, they hate it. And I'll tell you what, after the first couple of weeks of the season, when your team is, much more prepared than the other teams, you'll see it worth it. But in that time, they're going to hate you for it. They're going to hate that BP was so hard. When you throw, like Monty said, you're throwing BP from 25 feet, you're going to get kids complaining. Tim Corbin gave me some great advice a few years ago. They did a BP scrimmage on the field. And the first time they ever did it. And he said 2 innings in, all the players were complaining that this is dumb, and they didn't like it. He brought everybody together and said, the reason we did this today is I wanted to see how you guys could react to adversity, how you guys could handle something like this. You guys have shown me that you can't handle it. And it was just a lesson he was trying to teach his team. Like, you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So ratio-wise, once the season starts, as quickly as you can, get to live, get to machine. In a dream scenario, you've got 10 BP pitchers that can throw all day long, carve guys up with different pitches. In my dream scenario, we're doing live and machine only, and front toss and tee is just a warm-up. So, for you got to figure out what's the best for your team. But my advice is to get to uncomfortable, game-like, difficult practices as quickly as possible. And you're not going to see the benefits for a little while, but that payoff during the season is going to be incredible.
Awesome. I know Dirk's going to jump in here. I just want to, before Dirk casts this off, I just want to thank you guys. Green man, a pleasure. We'll keep this relationship going, everything, and people will jump on. This is just amazing. We do enjoy the night. Congratulations for you, yourself, and the family and the program. Congratulations. Matt, thanks for everything, man. Eye-opening, and then you kind of spoke our language about having a shoelace budget to basically high-end stuff and how we can adjust. Monty, when I talked to Kane today and I said, hey, man, what can you tell me about Monty? He says, culture, mental game, hunting and fishing, great guy. And he hit the nail on the head on all those points. So thanks for all that.
Thanks, JG. Again, when we put this together and we asked coaches Lee, Green, and Lyle to help us out, we kind of expected to have a great evening, and they definitely didn't disappoint. Coaches Green and Lee have been friends of Baseball Ontario for a long time. Both have spoken at the past Best Ever Clinic, and we will definitely be bringing them back sometime in the near future. And obviously we'll have to get Matt up to Toronto for the Best Ever Clinic as well. So again, to all three of you, thank you very much for taking time out of your personal lives, time out of your baseball life, time that could have been well spent with others. Congratulations to you, Coach Green. Exciting day to have the 7th overall pick today. Coach Lee, continued success at Clemson University, and Coach Lyle, continued success with the softball team at Fresno State. JG, great job, buddy, once again as a host. To all the coaches on the call, next week we have a little bit of a surprise for you. We're working on a little bit of an international flavor from across the pond on practice planning, as well as a high school coach from down south. So watch the Twitter account, watch the Instagram account, and watch the Facebook account for Baseball Ontario for announcements on next week's Around the Horn. This is Dirk Drieberg saying once again, thank you to JG, thank you to coaches Lee, Green, and Lyle. Please stay safe. Hopefully we'll be back on the field soon. Have a great night from Baseball Ontario.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Monty. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, JG.
Thanks, Dirk. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.